I always disliked my voice because I have a very deep voice for a woman. And so now God blasts it all over the earth.
For decades, Joyce Meyer inspired millions with a message of hope and faith. But behind the public image lies a history marked by profound tragedy and controversy. Could the spiritual icon's personal pain and ministry struggles reveal a pattern far more disturbing than anyone expected? From abuse and betrayal to shocking scandals and financial scrutiny, Joyce Meyer's story challenges everything we thought we knew about her. Prepare to uncover the hidden layers behind her rise to fame and the disturbing complications that continue to unfold. The hidden abuse revealed. Joyce Meyer's story is not just one of faith and triumph, but also of deep and disturbing pain hidden behind closed doors. Born Pauline Joyce Hutchison in 1943 in St. Louis, Missouri, her early years were shaped by a household ruled by fear rather than love. Her father, a World War II veteran, returned home not as a hero, but as a man whose behavior became increasingly destructive and controlling. What many never knew was the extent to which she suffered in that environment, enduring abuse that would leave a scar on her soul for decades. For more than 10 years, Joyce was subjected to relentless mistreatment by the very person who should have provided protection and care. These were not just isolated incidents, but a horrifying pattern repeated over 200 times. The terror and manipulation she experienced were compounded by her mother's silence. Her mother knew something was wrong, but was too afraid to intervene, leaving Joyce feeling abandoned and utterly alone in her suffering. At school, Joyce wore a carefully crafted mask, appearing like any other student, but carrying a secret so heavy it isolated her from her peers. The fear of being discovered, disbelief from others, and threats from her abuser created a prison far worse than physical walls. Her father's control extended beyond the abuse, dictating even the smallest details of their lives, from what they ate to their bedtime, leaving no room for escape or relief. The weight of secrecy and trauma became a burden she carried silently for years. Despite these dark beginnings, Joyce found faith at a young age, becoming a Christian at 9. However, this initial faith was more fragile than firm, overshadowed by the harshness of her daily life. The Bible's message of unchanging hope clashed with her reality of fear and pain. She needed more than religion to survive. She needed a way out of the nightmare that had become her childhood. This foundational trauma would later become a hidden force, shaping both her ministry and the controversies that followed. The complexity of her early life sets the stage for understanding the conflicts Joyce would face in adulthood. The betrayal by those closest to her planted seeds of mistrust that would affect her relationships and self-perception for years to come. It's clear that the pain Joyce tried to bury played a significant role in the challenges and choices she made later. This unresolved past adds layers of nuance to her story, showing that her rise to influence was not without deep personal conflict. Her experience raises difficult questions about how abuse, neglect, and silence impact survivors long after the immediate danger has passed. Joyce's narrative challenges simple ideas about faith overcoming adversity, revealing how deeply trauma can embed itself. It reminds us that public success can sometimes mask private suffering, and those struggles don't disappear with fame or fortune. This awareness is crucial for anyone trying to understand her complicated legacy. Though the trauma left deep wounds, Joyce's journey was far from over. The next chapter would test her resilience in new and unexpected ways. A troubled first marriage. Escaping the torment of her childhood was Joyce Meyer's desperate goal as she reached adulthood, but instead of finding sanctuary, she walked into a new kind of nightmare. Her first marriage, beginning when she was just a young woman, brought betrayal and hardship rather than the love and stability she longed for. The man she married was far from a savior. He was a part-time car salesman who proved to be manipulative, untrustworthy, and even criminal. From the outset, he showed little regard for Joyce's well-being, disappearing for days without explanation and leaving her stranded without money or a way home. The instability he introduced shattered any hope for the safety Joyce had sought. When she became pregnant with their son David, the man's betrayal deepened. He moved in with another woman, abandoning his family at their greatest moment of need. Those 5 years together were later described by Joyce as a nightmare, marked by endless heartache and deception. Perhaps most shocking was the role Joyce was coerced into during this troubled chapter. Under her husband's influence, she became involved in illegal activity, stealing payroll checks from her employer that he then cashed to fund their lifestyle. This act of desperation was fueled by fear and misplaced loyalty, not malice. Years later, Joyce worked to make restitution, repaying every dollar, seeking to right the wrongs of a time when she felt trapped and vulnerable. The husband caused her emotional and physical suffering, which destroyed her ability to trust others and made her feel completely isolated. Joyce realized her marriage brought her more suffering when her husband received his final arrest and prison sentence. The divorce ended their marriage, but the emotional effects of their separation continued to affect them both. Joyce experienced deep personal challenges after her separation from her partner. She used destructive behaviors through smoking and late-night escapism and casual relationships to deal with her deep emotional pain, which resulted from years of trauma and neglect. She did not rebel during this phase because she wanted to keep herself alive during her inner emotional battle. The combination of her childhood wounds and her marital wounds created a situation which endangered everything she had worked so hard to achieve. The first signs of change began to emerge from the dark situation. Joyce discovered a new type of relationship which depended on patient support together with consistent assistance, instead of the relationship which had brought her into chaos. Her previous experiences would continue to shape her character as they affected her ability to empathize with others while creating challenges for her ministry work. From this crossroads of broken relationships and personal turmoil, Joyce's path to a larger mission began to emerge, a mission that would take her far beyond the confines of her past pain. Rise of a ministry and its mission. Joyce Meyer's emergence as a vibrant ministry leader began amidst her own struggle to heal and find purpose beyond the pain she had endured. After her first marriage ended, she met Dave Meyer, an engineering draftsman and Army veteran, whose steady and patient nature contrasted sharply with the chaos of her earlier life. Their union was not only a personal turning point, but the foundation for what would grow into a worldwide ministry touching millions. Meeting in 1966, Joyce and Dave forged a relationship marked by patience and persistence. Dave's calm and consistent support helped Joyce confront her emotional wounds rather than run from them. Their marriage was not perfect. Joyce admits she was often controlling and verbally aggressive, but Dave's refusal to be pulled into her storms provided a stabilizing force. Over time, this steady partnership allowed her to build a sense of security and trust that had previously eluded her. This emotional transformation coincided with a spiritual awakening that would define Joyce's teaching. In February 1976, after years of frustration and desperation, she experienced a powerful moment of clarity and renewal. Feeling empty despite her Christian faith, she cried out to God, receiving a profound sense of love and a call toward patience and healing. This moment was the spark that directed her to share her story and faith with others, transforming personal struggle into a message of hope. The year 1980 marked the start of her Bible study leadership which she used to teach her personal life story to her co-workers during informal work interactions. People who wanted to feel connected to church services discovered her genuine method of worship. The meetings experienced immediate success when attendance reached hundreds, which led Life Christian Center in Missouri to appoint her as an associate pastor in 1980. Her ministry growth started from basic home study programs and radio closet studio work, which she established as her first ministry activities. Joyce developed her message during the next 10 years to teach people how to apply their faith to handle daily life challenges. The public responded to her teachings about emotional healing and fear elimination and strength development. Joyce reached various viewers through television broadcasts, which she started by the 1990s on WGN-TV Chicago and BET networks. Her shows evolved into the popular program Enjoying Everyday Life, which now airs in more than 100 countries across multiple continents. Joyce expanded her ministry work to create humanitarian projects, which include Hand of Hope and the St. Louis Dream Center. The initiatives fulfilled actual social responsibilities through their work to feed hungry people and deliver medical assistance and support communities during emergencies, which proved the ministry's commitment to perform real work instead of merely speaking about it. Her broadcasts created growing influence for her, which resulted in people experiencing positive transformations through her programs. The story of Joyce Meyer's rise is as much about personal healing as it is about public influence, setting up challenges that would test her ministry's integrity and focus. Controversial teachings and backlash.
And I know it even sounds stupid to me, but I'm glad now that I went through what I went through.
Joyce Meyer's ministry skyrocketed with her relatable approach to faith, but not without drawing sharp criticism from within the Christian community. One of the most debated aspects of her teaching was her association with the prosperity gospel, a belief system that suggests faith can lead to material wealth and financial blessings. Many critics argue that this focus distorts traditional Christian teachings about humility, suffering, and the nature of God's blessings. For some, her message seemed to equate wealth with divine favor, overlooking the complexities of life's hardships. At the heart of the controversy was Meyer's assertion that personal hardships could stem from a lack of faith. On occasion, she suggested that illnesses or even tragic losses might be tied to insufficient belief or spiritual failure. This message was deeply painful and alienating to many who felt blamed for circumstances beyond their control. While she later admitted that these views were out of balance, the initial impact left lasting wounds and skepticism that some found hard to reconcile with the gospel's message of grace. Beyond prosperity teachings, Meyer espoused other unconventional beliefs that sparked theological debates. She proposed that Jesus temporarily ceased being the Son of God during his crucifixion, and even took on the nature of evil while in hell, ideas that contradict core Christian doctrine affirming Jesus' continuous divinity. These teachings align with certain facets of the Word of Faith movement, which has often faced accusations of distorting Scripture. Such views isolated Meyer from mainstream evangelical leaders and drew sharp rebukes. Her followers, however, often embraced her openness about the spiritual battles believers face, including frequent references to demonic influences on everyday troubles. The practice of spiritual warfare attracted charismatic Christians, yet it created problems for others who viewed it as a source of superstitious beliefs and fear. Her open style of communication created a battle between her correct handling of theological matters and her actual delivery of the scientific contents of her message to the audience, which resulted in people accepting her entire mission and others doubting its base. Meyer gained distinctiveness through her ability to face real-life problems while experiencing emotional distress, which enabled critics to charge her with making complex spiritual matters too simple. Her teaching system required believers to use practical biblical principles for overcoming their doubts and fears. But her opponents claimed that she excessively interpreted Scripture through some of her statements. Her ministry developed its public image through her need to teach content that people could relate to while maintaining correct doctrinal belief. Meyer used her 2019 public statement to discuss the need for balanced teaching because she now recognizes that her past teachings about prosperity and faith contained errors. She now understands that blaming people for their sickness or losses because of not enough faith constitutes a major wrongdoing, which represents her new direction of teaching. The majority of people viewed this action as a demonstration of his humility through correction, yet critics remained doubtful because they believed his transformation arrived at a time when his influence had become too powerful. Even the most passionate teachings can face scrutiny when prosperity and power intersect in surprising ways. Financial scandals and lifestyle criticism. As Joyce Meyer's ministry expanded into a global phenomenon, questions arose about how the substantial funds were managed and spent. Reports surfaced revealing an extravagant lifestyle funded by ministry resources, including multi-million-dollar homes purchased for Meyer and her family in a gated community just outside St. Louis. Her personal residence alone was valued at over $2 million, while additional homes acquired for her children added millions more in property holdings. These revelations fueled a growing debate on the ethics of wealth accumulation within faith-based organizations. But it wasn't just real estate that alarmed critics. Financial records showed Meyer's ministry spending lavishly on luxurious furnishings and costly artwork for its headquarters, housed in a 158,000-square-foot facility. Among the most eye-catching expenses were a $30,000 malachite round table and a $23,000 antique commode. These indulgences became symbols of excess, prompting watchdog groups to call for a thorough investigation into whether ministry funds were being misused. Perhaps the most controversial acquisition was a $10 million Gulfstream private jet, which Meyer defended as necessary for ministry work and travel. Critics, however, viewed the jet as excessive and emblematic of a broader pattern of financial irresponsibility. Though many televangelists own private jets, the price tag and opulence surrounding Meyer's fleet made her a lightning rod in discussions about accountability and stewardship in religious organizations. Government scrutiny intensified in 2007 when the United States Senate Finance Committee launched an investigation into several prominent televangelists, including Meyer. Led by Senator Chuck Grassley, the inquiry sought to uncover whether these ministries were abusing their tax-exempt statuses. One of the central issues highlighted was Meyer's reportedly high salary, which at its peak reached $900,000 annually, with her husband earning around $450,000. The committee also examined questionable expenses, such as cosmetic procedures and foreign bank accounts. In response to the backlash, Meyer reduced her salary in 2004 and announced that she would rely primarily on book royalties instead of ministry funds for personal income. Nonetheless, critics argued this shift made little difference, as her books continued generating tens of millions in sales. With combined earnings and ministry resources, doubts about the ministry's true financial practices persisted. Further accusations of nepotism emerged as the Meyer family occupied numerous key leadership positions. Her husband Dave served as vice president. One son led the United States operations as CEO, and another son oversaw the ministry's outreach arm. When wealth and influence collide in spiritual arenas, the path ahead is never simple or free from controversy. Tragedies and organizational failures.
Left alone, and I remember when my mom was pregnant with him, praying he'd be a girl, hoping my dad would like her better than me and leave me alone. Wasn't a very nice thing to pray, but
Joyce Meyer. Ministries has faced profound challenges beyond financial scrutiny and doctrinal controversies, as several tragedies and scandals have tested the organization's stability and public reputation. One of the darkest moments was the case of Christopher Coleman, the ministry's head of security, who in 2009 slain his wife and 2 sons in a shocking and brutal crime. This horrifying incident shocked many, compounded by revelations that Coleman had been living a double life, including having an affair with a close family friend. The ministry's connection to Coleman raised difficult questions about oversight and accountability within its leadership. Investigations uncovered that Coleman had fabricated anonymous threats against his own family, attempting to create an alibi for the slaying. The evidence demonstrated premeditation as well as deception, highlighting failures to detect warning signs. In response, the victim's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Joyce Meyer Ministries, claiming the organization ignored critical indications of trouble and failed to protect Sherry Coleman and her children. The lawsuit argued the ministry had knowledge of the affair and threats, but did not act responsibly. The ministry maintained its position that legal obligations did not apply to them because authorities failed to forecast or stop the disaster. The judge dismissed the case because the judge found no evidence that the ministry should be held responsible for the incident. The event created permanent uncertainty about organizational governance, while it showed deficiencies in how religious organizations deal with internal risk and staff management. The research demonstrated that religious organizations become exposed to danger when their private wrongdoings meet their public missions. In 2025, Joyce Meyer Ministries encountered its second major scandal when the organization ended its partnership with Daystar Television Network, after Daystar president co-founder allegations became public. The accusations against her included her family abuse cover-up allegations and her financial and spiritual violation of trust. The ministry decided to break ties with Meyer because of his past experience with childhood trauma, as the organization wanted to maintain its ethical standards and organizational integrity while maintaining its operational truthfulness, which required the ministry to terminate its association with a broadcaster. The decision to break from Daystar media platforms resulted in a significant Christian exodus from Daystar, which highlighted existing problems that Christian media outlets encounter when producing their programs. The scandal showed that ministries need better ways to hold their staff accountable for their actions, which must extend to all networks that distribute their content. The research demonstrated that allegations of abuse and misconduct spread through the entire religious community, which includes even the most esteemed religious leaders. Joyce Meyer's story is one of deeply personal trauma, remarkable resilience, and complicated legacy. From painful beginnings to global ministry, the challenges she faced reveal the human side of spiritual leadership and the heavy costs it can carry. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe for more insightful explorations of influential figures and their truths.